strength down there, and he doesn't have that. And then when I looked at Tebow throwing the ball, I mean, there's a lot of things you can criticize about Tebow throwing, but the ball had more velocity than Barkley. And he, and in a game that he had to have, Tebow had it. Barkley, in a must-have game, Barkley did not show up. And that was, I guess, my biggest criticism, that he went out there and he had the first quarter. He could have set the tone. And you think of it like a boxing match, because it was going to go first, second, third, fourth with Barkley, Tebow. He could have delivered the first punch and now put some pressure on Tebow. And he didn't do that. Tebow got to come out there like, that's what I got to follow? All right.
Yeah.
And there it went.
And really, Tebow, I mean, he did still do some Tim Tebow-like things, but I think he did come to play. I mean, his back was against the wall, basically. He was playing for a job in the NFL, and he really did come to play. 11-17, 189 yards, 2 touchdowns. Did have that pick, but that was a fourth and long type interception there for him. But let's talk about the battle between Tim Tebow and Matt Barkley, because I guess when Chip Kelly first signed Tim Tebow, it was more about just the fascination of Tim Tebow and kind of taking on that challenge of trying to fix this guy. But when you have Matt Barkley already on the team, was this more about Matt Barkley just not coming to play and making the decision any more harder on Chip Kelly, or is this more about Tim Tebow just flat out winning the job?
I think it was more about Chip Kelly thinking, do I really want to go with Matt Barkley again, or do I want to just maybe kick the tires on something else just to see if it maybe is a better choice? And honestly, I think, he gave Matt Barkley every opportunity to try to do something and try to do something good for himself, because let's be honest, through the rumors that we've heard, through the signs that have been out there, if Matt Barkley had played well in the last few games, probably at the point where, it looks like they've got to keep Barkley and not Tebow, Barkley was probably going to be traded. I think that Chip Kelly was ready to move on from that, and then Tim Tebow would have still been the number 3 guy, and the Eagles would have gotten something in return for, a draft pick that, hasn't really developed the way that Chip Kelly wanted. And I think that's the bottom line. Now, the other problem is, and you weren't going to have this, even if Barkley is on the roster, he still hasn't officially been cut, but you don't have that young quarterback to kind of develop and bring up through the ranks. So they're going to have to fix that at some point in the near future. Not necessarily this year, but that's got to be addressed.
Do you expect, I guess we can all expect Tim Tebow to now make this team, but do you expect Tim Tebow to be active on game days? Because I was talking about this earlier on in the show, is that game last year against Houston when Nick Foles goes down and he can't come back into the game, Mark Sanchez comes in and he wins that game. So are you going to make Mark Sanchez inactive on game days and really have Tim Tebow as your number 2, or really just have Tim Tebow on this football team and just really not activate him on game day?
Yeah, it's really hard to figure out. And Chip gave absolutely no indications in anything in any kind of way. His post-game press conference last night was about as vanilla as it could be.
Very sarcastic too, right?
Oh, well, when isn't he this time of year? Seems like that's his thing. So we'll go with that. But he didn't really give you any indication in any way at all of who was going to make it. Oh, we have to look at the film. I mean, I think everybody can say it was pretty clear last night, if you're going on that one game, which one was better. But he said he had to look at the film. And, so how will Tim Tebow be used if he does make the team? And I think basically yesterday we were talking about 3 options: Matt Barkley or Tim Tebow or neither. I think today it boils down to Tebow or neither. And I still think the neither is a possibility. I still think if somebody else gets cut and Chip wants to take a flyer on somebody else, he could do that. Because let's be honest, I don't think there's any other team out there that's probably going to say, oh, the Eagles dropped Tebow, let's go grab him. So he might hang out there for a little while if Chip wants to, grab another quarterback that becomes a cut day casualty.
Let's talk about Scott Grayson, our Eagles insider, 97.3 ESPN-FM. Grayson's grades last night, Eagles and the Jets preseason finale. Let's talk about Eric Rowe. You gave him a C last night. He struggled now back-to-back games, and he's played a lot of football. I mean, he got a lot of snaps last night, and this slot corner position is still up for grabs, and Eric Rowe really hasn't taken the brass ring, so to speak, for that spot. Where is the coaching staff with Eric Rowe, and where are you at with Eric Rowe this season?
I think the biggest thing to preach with Eric Rowe is, I mean, everybody wants him to come along, me included.
Second-round pick. I mean, you know?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is everybody's got to remember he's just a rookie. He's been in 4 NFL games. He hasn't played against the top-tier talent in any game for very long. And so he's kind of still getting a little bit of an NFL education. And so I think the thing to say, it almost sounds like Marcus Smith last year. Well, let's just be a little patient. Let's give him a little time, see how he does, what he learns when he's out there watching, you know, these veterans play for the most part in some of these early games, and then he has to go out there and nickel. You know, I think that I would just say, you know, everybody just kind of like hold on with Eric Rowe. He's shown some attributes, we'll say, that I think are very desirable. Now, he has shown also the ability to lose a guy over the middle, and that's not very good. He's going to have to fix that. He's got more stuff on film that he can hopefully sit in the film room and learn from, and that's where I think, you know, right now this staff is with him. Like, they got a lot of stuff, as you said, he got a lot of playing time, a lot of reps in the 4 preseason games. They got a lot of film that they're able to sit down with him and hopefully teach him a little bit more of where he's a little late in recovering on some of those, you know, moves and those plays where he's late getting to the receiver because the ball beats him there. And that's where I think, you know, let's see how he is. If he's still where he is and he's stagnant, not improving by the time we get to week 4 or 5, then we may have a bigger problem.
Let's talk about cut down day is tomorrow, Saturday at 4. But now all these moves are unofficial, but some guys have been cut. Namely, one guy, Chris Brzezinski, another guy, Randall Evans, has been released. And Rasheed Bailey, I guess, is the other kind of, you know, name out there. Are you surprised at any of these names being cut? I think Brzezinski is a bit of a shock. Evans as well, too.
Yeah, I would say Brzezinski's probably the biggest shock. Not terribly surprised at an Evans, but with Brzezinski, you had a special teams guy. So now, you know, when you're trying to do the math to get the 53, now is that because Barner's going to make the team? Is that where that 4th running back is robbing the slot from? Safety? You know, Ed Reynolds, does that mean he makes the team, or Copeland? You know, so there's obviously they need some safety depth, and they have to get to their 53. Rasheed Bailey, I was not surprised that he didn't make the team. I think what he did do with the opportunity with the Eagles, I just think there's too much in front of him. But what he did with the Eagles, I think, was took advantage of the opportunities he had. I thought he was a very, very good receiver. I think he's got a potential future in the league at some point. And worst case, I think he's on the practice squad. To me, he seems like the kind of guy with his ability and with his skills that could be right there. And if somebody goes down, maybe he's the next man up off the practice squad.
Another guy cut today, Scott, is John Moffitt. He's been out of football for 2 years. Now he's kind of back at, you know, being out of football. But this was a guy that a lot of people kind of penned in as taking over at guards at some point during the year. And now he's not even going to make the opening day roster. Your thoughts on John Moffitt getting cut?
Yeah, I think what you saw from him, at least what I saw, was early in training camp, you saw a guy who had a chance. And at the end of training camp, and really at the end of the 4th preseason game last night, you saw a guy who really didn't look like he got any better over that period of time. And I think that's what the coaching staff reacted to. Hey, here's a guy who has been out, but he didn't show like he was shedding any rust. And that's a problem. You know, they got to keep, you know, it's a numbers game. And if you can't get better, if you can't show that you're going to be of value to the team at some point, and if he hadn't gotten better in 1 month, what's to say he was going to get better in the next 4 weeks or 8 weeks? You know, that one, honestly, that one hasn't really surprised me after the way the last 2 preseason games unfolded.
Lastly, Scott, where are we at with Zach Ertz? I know when he first went down, Chip Kelly didn't seem really too worried about it. I mean, he thinks that Zach Ertz should be ready for week 1 against Atlanta, but I'm not too sure about that. Where and what have you heard on the status of Zach Ertz?
I mean, what Chip keeps saying is, yes, he's going to be fine. The problem is, as of last night, which was the 3rd, you're still 11 days out. And you know, no matter what Chip says, there's still plenty of time to be optimistic. We really won't know anything about Ertz, and my guess is he's going to ultimately be a game-time decision on the 14th. And with the Cowboys looming 6 days later, I really, unless Ertz is 100%, which I don't totally expect, I think it's in their best interest to go that game without him and have him for the Cowboys. That's a division game early in the season. at home. You're home. I mean, you got to have that game, and you really want to make sure you have a guy like Ertz ready, healthy, and not putting him out there too fast that he ends up, playing a game or two and ends up sitting again. So I'm starting to get to the point where I'm with you. I just don't think that Ertz is going to probably be a full go for the 14th. But I think the way it's going to play out with Chip is we're going to bring him to Atlanta. We're going to run him out there in pregame warm-ups, and we'll make a final decision right before the game.
All right, Scott Grayson, our Eagles insider, 973ESPN.com for more Grayson's Grays, Eagles, and Jets. Scott, enjoy the college football weekend here, Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, college football's back. At least we got that to whet our appetite till the NFL comes back around in week 1, right?
Absolutely. Scott, thanks.
All right, thanks a lot, Pete.